Hey, I'm Sarah.
And I'm Francesca.
Welcome back to our podcast.
Critical Babe Theory.
How are you, Francesca?
You know, I'm pretty good. When Sarah walked in, I was listening to I Did It My Way by Frank Sinatra, which I think is a pretty good overall encapsulation of my current mood.
Yeah.
Positive. I guess you took it, you were worried about me.
I just feel like I've been to a lot of, at restaurants I worked at, I feel like a lot of old men would get up and sing that song as their swan song, and then the next day they'd be dead.
Die.
Yeah. So that's what I was associating it with, but you're right. It is.
I guess it's a song of triumph.
Yeah.
Of the will overall, which is, I guess, not something I'm usually a fan of.
Apparently Sinatra hated that song.
Really?
I think it was just overplayed for him. He felt
he was also a gangster though, wasn't he?
Yeah, but what does that have to do with his preferences?
I don't know. I think it's I think we were talking about this on the train. It's I don't know, sometimes celebrities who are in a cult hit, a cult film, they'll be I just had that one thing, and it's so cool if you just get to be in one cult classic that people love. If you're Alicia Silverstone, who plays Cher and Clueless, that's amazing. Let the people have that. So if My Way is a beloved favorite of dying old men across the world, who is Frank Sinatra?
Famous one-hit wonder, Frank Sinatra.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Let the, you make the work, man, but you're just a vessel. And then the Lord will see fit of how to use it. It's not under your control.
Yeah. Yeah. I was telling Francesca that every year there's a Sinatra sing-off in Hoboken, New Jersey, which is where Sinatra was born. And people come from all over the world to compete to be the best Frank Sinatra impersonator.
Oh, it's specifically an impersonation. I missed that. Okay.
Yeah, so it used to be called Sinatra Idol, but then American Idol sued them for copyright infringement, which is crazy. It's literally a free performance on the Hoboken waterfront. But the last song, they do My Way, all of the contestants, but there's only 3 mics, so all of the Frank Sinatra impersonators are elbowing each other out of the way to get to the mic so that they can be the star.
Well, it is a very American song, and if I may, I would be interested to hear, does Trump like that song? Because it very much, to me, is redolent of his whole persona.
Yeah.
And modus operandi.
He kind of has quirky music taste. He loves the YMCA, which is such a bad song.
Also so gay.
Yeah.
Well, that's what, as I said last week, maybe the secret plan is to make America gay again. Oh, I don't even remember how I got there. But anyway, that would also support that thesis. Yeah, I can imagine he's a big Andrea Bocelli fan.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Anyway.
I'm sure we could just Google it.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, you know what song Frank Sinatra did not sing, but Katy Perry did in Outer Space. What a Wonderful World.
I was thinking about Katy Perry. I was this bitch can't stop making public gaffes the way Taylor Swift can't stop wearing tragic outfits.
Yeah.
It's a compulsion beyond themselves. Katy Perry, the last thing, she had been a nobody. She hasn't had a hit record in I don't know how long. Everybody thinks she's tragic. She's so corny. She's so played out. Then she comes out with it's as if it's 2015, a woman first. I don't even know what that record was called.
Woman's World.
Exactly, that. And then she's already in a press maelstrom because she's just so tragic. And then she goes and films a music video on a protected, I don't know if it's National Historic, in Spain or something, a protected, what are those called? Sand dunes? I was this bitch is she's a heat-seeking missile for gaffes. You know what I mean? And I would say that her latest is one of the dozens she's perpetrated.
Yeah, I think I think she should really just be grateful for the success that she's had, but instead she went to outer space. So
At like a play for viability and being current? I mean,
I don't know what it was. So Jeff Bezos has his his own SpaceX. It's called Blue Origin.
stupid name.
Yeah. Well, its mission statement is, we envision a future where millions of people will live and work in space with a single-minded purpose to restore and sustain Earth, our blue origin.
These motherfuckers. First of all, if you were going to pick a color for Earth, why are you picking blue? Pick green. Do you know what I mean? We're not living in the fucking ocean. But the other thing is like, it's only these delusional assholes like Musk and Bezos who are like, a good solve for our problems is just take it to space. It is so much harder to build a system from scratch in a hostile environment than it is to modify and change behaviors in the current system and infrastructure that you have. That's just some 101 basic shit. If you have a house, it is going to cost less to renovate it than to do a ground up build. This is just how contracting works. Do you know what I mean? And these delusional motherfuckers think that we can go to space and somehow it's going to be easy and it's going to be better. There's no oxygen there. You can't even fucking breathe. You know what I take for granted when I go outside? That I can breathe. That gives me a lot of space that I don't have to use my mental capital on figuring out how I'm going to breathe.
But Francesca, you haven't even heard their plan yet.
Okay. Tell me what their plan is.
In 2021, they revealed their commercial destination concept called Orbital Reef. And it is going to be a mixed-use business park 250 miles above Earth. So tell me you don't want a mixed-use business park in space.
Business park? Do you know how many abandoned corporate business parks there are right now here on Earth?
But they're not in space.
Nobody wants to go to a fucking mixed-use business park. I can't even
imagine the TikTok content you can make from your mixed-use business park.
Literally,
office.
that's the only people who will go there, because it just the opportunity cost, it just boggles the mind. And these are the men who have the keys to the kingdom, who have the power to actually create change in this world around climate change, perhaps like nuclear holocaust, all this stuff. Like, these are the people with the power, and they're fucking children who are just obsessed with Star Wars and want to go to space. Like, that's who's in charge.
Yeah.
Dorks.
Yeah.
Like, not cool ones.
I would say worse than dorks, because I feel like my husband reads so much sci-fi, and I'm like, the best, like their greatest sci-fi fantasy is a mixed-use business park. Like, they could not have thought of anything better.
Totally. That is some boring corporate shit that nobody wants. That sounds like the malls that were built all over America that are now being abandoned. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, malls, they had their moment.
Sure, but to think about the amount of resources and brain power that would go into building this mixed-use business park that could be allocated elsewhere where it is actually needed, and then you know that thing's only going to stay open for like 5 to 10 years maximum because it's going to be so hard to maintain.
You're not seeing the vision of Orbital Reef.
I am not enrolled in the vision. 100% guaranteed. You know, when I saw that movie Ad Astra, did you see that movie where it's like Brad Pitt has such bad daddy issues he like goes to Saturn?
I actually hate movies about space, but
okay, well,
continue.
In this movie, if anybody's seen it, basically like first, perhaps it's like an astronaut. First, he goes to the moon, and then from the moon, he goes to Mars. And then from Mars, man, like, and I had this sense over the course of the film of like growing dread. Like, the further he got from Earth, I was like, we're not supposed to be there, man. It's not made for us, man. And I just, like, my experience with the film was like, the further he got from Earth, and then he's out in some Saturn's rings or shit, and I was like, it's not natural. It's not natural. It's, in fact, it's a huge mistake. It was a mistake for Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
In the movie. It's a mistake for Bezos. It was a mistake for Katy Perry.
Well, you don't know about Blue Origin's feminist agenda. So, you know, if women had been in that spaceship instead of Brad Pitt, it would have been different.
Literally, they
would
go all
have
the
been
way.
singing.
They would have been, their tits would have been zipped up. No, but he goes and all he does is find fucking Tommy Lee Jones puttering around. And you know what Tommy Lee Jones?
Why was he there?
Because that's his daddy. His daddy was there because he was a scientist, but he'd actually gone crazy and killed everybody.
Well,
So there's just dead bodies
that's a
floating
risk.
around.
Yeah. That'll happen if you go to the rings of Saturn looking for your papa.
Or like if you, and I heard about this Blue Origin stuff, it's like those bitches were all screaming on the way down. Like they couldn't get enough of a feminist training to not look like little pussies.
Yeah. I only saw the video. Saw a very short video of them just kind of like, wow. Katy Perry looked like she was on benzos the whole time or something. She was like,
God bless.
before the mission, what did she say? She was like, okay, first of all, they were called the Taking Up Space Crew.
Get the fuck out of here.
Like, literal nightmare. I became an incel watching this video. Thank God we have finally something to unite the country, which is a misogynist hate towards these
Dude.
female astronauts. But, okay, so before the launch, she posted this Instagram video and she was like, I feel like the message I'm getting is you never know how much love you have inside of you until the day you launch. Love is all you need, and nothing means anything unless it equals love. I'm like, you literally seem like you're on something. And then she, like, her daughter's name is Daisy, so she brought a Daisy to space, and she was just, like, in front of the camera being like...
I mean, here's another aspect of this, which is like Blue Origin, SpaceX, even NASA, like, they don't have a great track record. Like, do you remember the Challenger explosion? Do you know what I mean? You were maybe
TBT.
you were not alive, maybe? I think that's right. But, like, I remember hearing about the Challenger explosion. Everybody was so psyched because there was a school teacher on it. And a school teacher, a woman, was going to get to go to space. And you know what happened? That shit fucking blew up, and they all fucking died.
Totally. All these women put their lives on the line
For a photo op.
for a publicity stunt for the world's second richest man. Like, this was all in service of Jeff Bezos making more money.
I mean,
by charging $150,000 for people to spend 4 minutes in space.
as a mother, I think Katy Perry should be ashamed of putting her life at risk and going up there.
I mean, listen, I respect real astronauts. Like, this whole time I was thinking about that poor woman who was stranded in space for 9 months.
And you know, they didn't even really get overtime pay. Did you hear about like the pay
No.
breakdown? They got like $300 extra or something like that.
Wait, like per day or?
No, bro. They got a $5 a day per diem.
No.
Yes, dude.
No.
Yes, dude. That's what, like,
Oh my God.
isn't that crazy, bro?
I feel, yeah.
Like, the world is whack. Yeah, they did some calculation. They were getting like 14 cents an hour of overtime pay or something like that.
Well, Francesca, what does the money matter when there's love?
When there's all love. But nobody has any fucking love for her. That's for sure. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that's she's trying to call love into her to like make a record of hers actually break the billboard again. But it's not 2000. When did that bitch come out? It's not 2006. Nobody wants like a big titted Christian fucking airhead with ditzy pop songs. Do you know what I mean?
Whoa. Okay, don't hate on her for having big tits.
sorry.
I mean, we all remember where we were when we first heard I Kissed a Girl. And
I don't remember because I didn't
I remember.
fucking listen to music like that.
you were just like listening to Frank Sinatra at the...
No, I was probably listening to like acid jazz or something.
What is that? Like a genre or a band?
Yeah, no, it's a genre.
Okay, Francesca, we can't all be listening to acid jazz when we're like 12 years old. And that was an amazing song. Katy Perry used to be amazing, but she's sold her soul.
Well, I just think like bubblegum has an expiration date. The woman is lacking substance.
I don't know. Have you listened to Woman's World?
Definitely not.
It could be the anthem for our podcast. It's a song for women. As a woman,
What does she have? I just don't like. But that's the thing is like the Blue Origin. What is that offering to women? Like that's not doing shit for me.
You don't want to go to space?
No, I don't want to go to fucking space. I want like.
Speak for yourself.
I want affordable childcare.
Nah, dog.
Right?
You ask too much.
I want health insurance.
No, you can go to space, but you can't get those things.
Yeah. So no, fuck them.
Well,
that's all I have to say.
Blue Origin. So glad they're safe.
I mean, that would have been ironic.
It would have been ironic. Yeah, so God bless
Katy Perry.
Yeah, I wish her well.
I'm neutral.
Yeah, I'm neutral. She has everything she needs. She has love.
She has Orlando Bloom.
Yeah. I mean, what?
I mean,
you think that's not cool? I used to have such a big crush on him.
Really?
Yeah, when I was a tween.
Huh.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah. Didn't really do it for me.
Well, you were too busy worshiping the idols of acid jazz. Should we talk about Kilmar briefly? Kilmar Garcia?
Yeah.
I just feel like there's been a lot going on this week. So, Francesca, you called it. President Trump does want to send citizens to El Salvador.
Of course he does. Who wouldn't? Problematic journalist? Boop. Annoying activist? Boop.
Mm-hmm.
It's a catch-all solution.
Mm-hmm. So he met with the president of El Salvador, and he was like, you better start building more prisons because we're going to start sending our homegrown criminals there. And then the journalists were like, can you do that? And he was like, we're looking into it. We're like seeing how we could swing it. So
I love this guy. He's got a real can-do attitude, you know? He's really looking for any ins and outs. He's an unconventional thinker, you know?
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. I looked into this prison, CCOT. Have you seen any pictures of it?
No, dude.
Dude, it is freaking Nazi shit. It is terrifying. They're in there, okay? They don't ever leave. Like, they're all in these separate airplane hangar type structures. They don't leave ever. They do not touch the ground. They do not see the sun, okay? They stay in these, like, terrifying cells, and they have metal bunk beds. No mattress, no pillow. They sleep on a slab of metal, okay? They're allowed out for 30 minutes a day into, like, the hallway where they do exercise. And, like, that's it. No books, no TV, no talking, okay? So, like, it is a horrifying place to send people who are criminals, and a horrifying place to send people who are innocent.
Or just a horrifying place to send people also just by mistake. Whoops.
Yeah, so...
But we're not even going to try to get them back.
No, and they, like, I was looking more into the Venezuelans that they sent there, and, like, there was this one guy who's a gay hairdresser from Venezuela who came to the U.S. seeking asylum, and he's, like, the cutest little man, okay? And they sent him there, and it was, like, horrible. They, like, shaved their heads. Like, truly, it's, like, some Nazi shit. And then there's, like, you're just there for the rest of your life. No one can come visit you. No one can talk to you. You're just there in silence forever. And, okay, I was looking into the relationship between Bukele and Trump, and this is some hot tea.
What?
So President Bukele, he made a deal with the MS-13 where he was kind of like, I scratch your back, you scratch mine, okay?
Obviously.
You help me get elected, you chill on murdering people, and, like, to some top people, like, I'll help you out, I'll get you out of prison or whatever. So those people ended up getting out of El Salvador, and getting arrested in Mexico, where they were extradited to the US, okay? So MS-13 has now been labeled a terrorist group. And so there were MS-13 members who were in prison in New York and waiting to stand trial. And they were going to have information about this deal that Bukele made with them. And then he said to Trump, like, hey, like, you can store your people here, but get those people back to me because I don't want them telling the courts that I was making deals with terrorists.
You know what? Criminals love criminals.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but Trump is like a small-time, petty, low-level, fraudulent, racist, fucking selling fake steaks and university diplomas criminal. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
of course he likes criminals.
Yeah.
I mean, it tracks. The company we keep, you know?
Totally.
That's dark, dude.
Super dark. So, as Francesca said, watch your back.
Watch what you like on social media. Oh my God, I don't know mattress.
No mattress. And then there was like this horrifying video of frickin' Kristi Noem with her fucking plastic ass looking face, which is a whole nother thing. I'm like, these Republican women are really just like like she had a normal, nice looking face.
This is a rabbit hole perhaps we should not go down
Okay.
right now.
Anyway, with her $50,000 gold Rolex, standing in front of the people. And I mean, it really was like a freaking concentration camp vibe. Like, they're just all standing behind her, like, staring, silent, you know? So, anyway, that's what I have to say about that.
It's almost like some David Ickel shit's going down, man.
What's that?
Oh, you don't know about David Ickel, the
No.
lizard people?
No, tell me. Do tell.
I'm not like a super deep Ickel theorist or anything, but he believed that a number of like prominent geopolitical leaders were actually lizards,
Oh.
like the Queen of England.
Cool.
But I would just say that that picture you're painting is like really giving Ickel to me, you know, but that would be one of the more far-flung conspiracy theories.
Do you think you would come on our podcast?
Is he alive? I think he's in England. Is he even alive? I don't know. I can ask some friends. I have some Ickel enthusiast friends.
Really?
There's actually this great song. Maybe we'll play it sometime by Clem Snide called The Ballad of David Ickel. That's really, I mean, it's like, which gets us to our next topic, which is like, when things as corrupt as like what you just said happen, right? Like the only way that we can sometimes understand them is to like start to see the world through the lens of like more conspiratorial thinking, right? Because there's something like so sick and twisted. Like I literally just did it. You just saw it. There's something so sick and twisted about sending people who have been denied a trial, right, have been denied an opportunity to defend themselves to a prison in another country where they will be locked away for the rest of their life, one of whom at least is known to have been sent there by mistake. And the response is like, oh, too bad. He's not coming back. That's what Pam Bondi said today, I think. She said he will not come back from there. And so like the way for me to understand that is like the first thing I thought of was like, oh, she must be a lizard person. You know what I mean?
Maybe that's why they're getting all this plastic surgery. It's to hide their lizard faces.
But may I go to the main meat of today, or do you have more you need to tell me?
Go for it.
Okay. So a couple weeks ago on The Daily, which is a New York Times podcast, if you don't know or listen to it, there was an episode with these two Princeton professors whose names escape me. One was kind of like fun and Southern sounding or something. And
Stephen Macedo
that sounds right.
and Francis Lee.
Francis Lee, that's the one I liked, Francis Lee. And these are like tenured professors at Princeton, very well respected. They work in they're professors in policy and democracy or something. And basically what they did is they came on and they said that now, 5 years later, looking back at all the lockdown procedures that were put in place for COVID, that actually they didn't really work and they didn't really save lives. and they had a huge toll on our society. And what was so interesting about that, and it was like a 45-minute interview, it's like that they came out with this study saying like conclusively that like lockdowns, school closures, quarantine, contact tracing, closing borders, social distancing, all these things like did not actually, based on their analysis, result in any saving of lives.
Or very minimal.
Incredibly minimal.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear one whisper about it in the mainstream press anywhere else.
Yeah. I saw a few things that were backlash against it, saying that they were promoting herd immunity, which is this idea that like we should have just done business as usual and let people die until we, gained herd immunity. But when I listened to the podcast, it was like pretty clear that was not what they were saying.
Yeah, that's not what they were saying. And also, okay, so basically to give more background on what they were saying is that like in 2019, and predating that, but in 2019, there were specifically 2 studies done on pre-pandemic preparedness, right? Obviously in 2019, we didn't know about any pandemic.
Specifically for a respiratory disease.
Very similar to what ended up happening. One was by the World Health Organization and one was by Johns Hopkins. And both of them found that the effectiveness of non-pharmaceutical interventions, such as lockdowns, quarantine, all that stuff, was very unlikely to have a high success rate, but was guaranteed to be incredibly detrimental to society.
Yes. And there was 4 specifically that they cited: quarantine of exposed persons, border closure, entry and exit screening, and contact tracing. That they said there were no assurances that these measures would work, but they were assured that they would have costs.
Okay. So that's what happened before 2020 broke out. So then, basically, there were these mental health professionals who worked on public policy in the United States who basically, against that science, made this premature consensus, right, that the best way to deal with the pandemic were these lockdown, physical distancing policies. Now, the only reason that they could see that was popular was because at the very beginning of the pandemic, the World Health Organization went to China and saw that China was actually having a lot of success with their lockdown at like keeping really containing the virus. And so the World Health Organization was like wholeheartedly recommending what China was doing. But also like what China was doing was like wildly draconian. I even knew some people who were living in China at the time, like Americans. And basically, citizens were sometimes being physically locked into their own apartments, not allowed to go outside. Like the lockdowns went on forever, and it's an authoritarian surveillance state, right? So like maybe there's the infrastructure and the citizens' tolerance for that kind of behavior from the state that like just doesn't exist in other places. So basically, the American scientists took that recommendation from the World Health Organization vis-a-vis China and COVID and then brought it here, even though there was no scientific consensus around those practices, and they were known to be incredibly detrimental. And I guess the thing that like struck me as the craziest about all this is that like also there was this whole environment of like it is immoral to ask questions. It is immoral to challenge the lockdown quarantining idea, right? There was this, I just remember hearing over and over again, like, trust the science, trust the science. And if you didn't trust the science, you were some like ignorant, stupid asshole who didn't know what was best for you. But the reality was there was no scientific consensus to trust.
Yeah.
It wasn't there.
Yeah.
It was all made up. And I remember there was this other thing that these Princeton professors talk about called the Great Barrington Declaration, which was 3 professors. I think one was from Oxford, one was from Stanford, one else was from some fancy place. That 7 months into the pandemic, they put it out. It was sort of just a policy paper. It was like 1 page where they were saying like, hey, maybe we need to take a different approach, which is just to protect the people who are most greatly affected by COVID, right? Which would be like the elderly. But maybe it's not worth it to keep schools closed because actually, you know, the death rates among children are super low. So that maybe just doesn't make sense that we're penalizing, say, like children and healthy adults and making them be locked down. And that, I think I was listening. The head of the National Institute of Health, whose name escapes me at the moment, his response when that Great Barrington Declaration came out was he wanted them to bury it in a quick and devastating takedown. That like there was no room for any kind of argument or questioning or anything around that. So I'm just like, so to me, I don't know, this is like huge news. You know, like I thought that the idea was like we did that for a reason.
Yeah.
Or those of us who could. And I think the other thing that's so crazy about this is like essential workers were not able to stay at home. So like not only were people's like livelihoods, the economy tanked, like people couldn't make money, but then also this one subset of society was asked to like bear all of the risk of exposure. Mm-hmm. And so I guess what I'm thinking, Sarah, is just like, of course, nobody would want to vote for the fucking Democrats in 2024. Like, it's the party that, first of all, was like shaking its finger at everybody, telling them that they like couldn't question, they had to follow the science when the science wasn't even there. And then also they're saying, well, you know, we're willing for one portion of society to die. You know, the ones who don't make a lot of money, don't have a college degree, don't have an email job. Like, that's cool. Like, you guys can bear the brunt of the burden. But the rest of us college-educated coastal elites, we just get to stay at home and bake bread.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I think another tragedy that they pointed out is that by the time that the states had, you know, variations in their non-pharmaceutical intervention policies, so Democratic states were keeping a lot of these quarantine protocols and social isolations and masking, and then Republican states were discarding them.
After like the first 2 or 3 months, I believe, something like that.
Yeah. And at that point, there was no difference in the death rate, like basically showing what the scientists were saying, that these interventions did not have great results. When the death rate started to become unequal was once vaccines rolled out, because then many more people were getting vaccinated in the Democratic states. And at that point, the Republican states, like, there was a huge distrust of the entire COVID narrative.
And government overreach in general, as seen through the lockdowns.
So what really made the difference with the disease was the vaccine. But by the time it came out, people's trust had, you know, been broken.
And I think, which also gets us to like the lab leak theory, you know, which is like, I guess, 'cause for me, I just want to say, like, I am sympathetic to vaccine hesitancy. I'm sympathetic to it. For me, pre-pandemic, I was like borderline anti-vax. And I just want to say, I have a lot of friends who are anti-vax. I'm in a lot of circles that are anti-vax. I get it. So to me, the foundation, and I feel like we should do a whole other episode just on vaccines because that's its whole own thing, but like the lab leak theory is a great example of why I understand people's vaccine hesitancy. So the lab leak theory comes out pretty early, and the Democratic Party and Democratic frickin' like legacy media are like squashing it. They're like, that's a conspiracy theory. That's some Republican blah, blah, blah. What happens now? What was it, like 4 years later? There's some quiet statements by Biden and the CIA. It seems like most likely actually COVID was from a lab leak. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, I will say that I think most liberal media was reporting on the lab leak by like starting in January 2021, which was when the New York Mag investigative piece came out about it. So I will say that like it's been a rollout, but
it was being shit on constantly and demeaned, and people who like, I was looking back today at all the different headlines, like people who were talking about the lab leak theory were like being shut down. And what's crazy, when you like, no wonder people are paranoid and believe in conspiracy theories, because like the Wuhan Institute of Health, you know what they were working on there? They were working on coronaviruses. They were working on, what's it called? Gain of function. Gain of function. They were working on coronaviruses, and this was super controversial among epidemiologists and virologists, like back in 2012, which is like a lot of people felt like it was immoral to do this kind of research, because what gain of function is you just try to make the viruses like stronger and more able to infect people. And so sometimes scientists were like, you guys, this isn't a great idea. And then other ones were like, no, we have to do it to develop better vaccines. So anyway, there had been a fight. It had been paused, then it was restarted, and they were researching in Wuhan. They were researching coronaviruses, doing gain of function, doing this like, the fulcrum edge, some sciencey shit I can't understand. And the thing that's really crazy is that lab was like able to handle like level 4 viruses, which would be like Ebola or stuff. And if you're dealing with a level 4 virus, you gotta wear the suit and you gotta have the airlock. And the thing is, like, it's a pain in the ass. You know what I mean? So some of them were like, well, coronaviruses, they're not that bad. Why don't we bump it down to a level 2 safety protocol? Because then we just got to put on some gloves and use a little pipette. And that would make our lives, like, I'd be in and out of the office. I don't know. I'd save like 15 minutes a day.
I'm sure that the reason that they bumped it to level 2 was like slightly more complicated than that. I'm sure it had to do with money, but yeah, go ahead.
But it was like a large part of it is like, it's a pain in the ass for the scientists to do level 4. So they were like working on coronaviruses. You know who was funding that shit? The United States of America. If I'm not mistaken, Fauci gave the order in like 2018 for them to do that funding.
It was done through an intermediary. So the US gave a grant to an organization I think might now be defunct. I think it was called EcoHealth. And then they were working with the Wuhan Institute.
But I guess, like, my point is like that then, by and large, the legacy media was trying to, like, slam the lab leak theory is, like, Republican conspiracy theory. And now, quietly, everyone's accepted and stated that it's most likely how the virus got out, that it was actually just a built virus by America. Now, I don't believe in the plandemic. Right? I don't think this was calculated. I think this is like human error, stupidity, and laziness, which in my opinion accounts for like a huge amount of problems in the world. It's not like nefarious and planned. It's just people are stupid sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I will say I don't know if it's a consensus. I think people are much more open to it being a possibility, but I think it's really hard to find out what happened because I don't think China's being super cooperative.
Well, also America did not release the lab itself. Whose jurisdiction are they under? I'm not sure. The lab itself would not release its full notes. So
I think China.
Probably. Yeah, so we don't know. But like the CIA has said that they believe it's a lab leak there. I think that the Department of Health has said, like, there's enough governmental organizations that are now saying quietly that it's likely. I don't think they can say guaranteed.
It does seem like a crazy coincidence.
I mean, I think that one of the labs was literally 280 meters from the wet market. And what I love is just that, like, people wanted to run with the super racist, like, it's just because Chinese people eat crazy food. It's their fault. It's like, no, bro. You literally are funding virus research, dude. What a shitty, like, throwing people under the bus. Like, I'll eat some, whatever, dude. Do you know what I mean? I just thought that was, like, so ridiculous.
My friend was tutoring her colleague or her classmates' kids. The family was from South Korea, and it was like during the pandemic, and she was tutoring him on Zoom, and he logs on to the class, and he's like, yeah, we, like, my family is supposed to go to California on vacation, but we can't because of the Asian hate. And she was like, yeah, it's like really hard, like, do you want to talk about it? And he's like, sure, yeah. So I hate the Chinese and I hate the Vietnamese, and just goes off. She was like, okay.
LOL.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's funny. That's funny.
But yeah, I think that people are like, I think it's so hard to comprehend that like people could be so careless, and like it's easier for people to believe that like people set out with these like nefarious intentions, you know, versus the reality that I feel like a lot of these politicians like now are just like kind of like bumbling around and like responding to like what.
But I think, here's where I think this is where the heart of the like criticism of the woke left is correct, is like what was problematic with what happened with the rollout of the non-pharmaceutical interventions, the lockdown procedures for COVID, was not necessarily that was like an attempt, but it was the stifling of dissent in conversation around it, right? That's the problem with like the woke mindset, right? Is that it was immoral for anyone to question it. Even this Great Barrington Declaration, who had these like pretty advanced virologists from like these fancy places where everybody was saying, even the criticism that these two Princeton professors just got, that they were saying, you just wanted herd immunity. You just wanted everybody to die. That's literally verbatim what was said about this Great Barrington Declaration. Yeah. Even though it was demonstrated even then that it wasn't really working. And here's another thing, man, and this might get me in trouble, is like, everybody's gonna fucking die. This fantasy of like that there is a solution that protects all doesn't exist. Do you know what I mean? Like, because the thing is like what the broad banner for the COVID lockdowns was like, we're gonna save everybody. Everybody just do your part, stay inside. But it was never gonna let everybody stay inside because there were the essential workers, right? The people who don't have the money to stay inside. But that wasn't the quiet part wasn't being said out loud, which is like those people, they don't deserve to fucking live. But we'll go all out. But the idea that like we would let older people, we would put like older white grannies at risk. We could never do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and like I think that the older white grannies should be protected to the full extent that we can. But I agree with you that it was like we were never gonna save everybody, and we sent people, you know, people were working in those grocery stores with those plastic screens, which apparently did nothing. And yeah, the rest of us were staying home. You know, I worked for a nonprofit. I got my hours reduced, and then I got the stimulus checks, and I was making more than I was before the pandemic.
But you know who didn't get to make more was the people working in the grocery stores.
I know. Yeah.
Because here's this crazy thing. So COVID expenditures, and this is from these Princeton professors, the COVID expenditures in 2020, and that's in proportion to GDP, they were like the New Deal and the 2009 stimulus package put together in 2020 alone.
Yeah.
And if you look at also then the amount of COVID stimulus that happened in 2021 and combine that with 2020, it is equivalent to the war mobilization effort pre the United States entering World War II.
Yeah.
And 12% of that went to healthcare, and the rest of it went to stimulus checks to keep computer email workers, right, in the money, and to keep business. How many motherfuckers got PPP checks? What's the fraud level with those things?
Yeah. I mean, I will point out that Donald Trump was president for
totally
a lot of this.
Totally. And you know what? He listened to he listened to the consensus from Fauci and from others, and he shouldn't have fucking done it. He should have been thinking outside that box like he is trying to deport American citizens to El Salvador, you know?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think in the beginning, I think people were just trying anything in the beginning. I think that when, as shit went on and it became clear the stuff was not working, someone should have, had some balls. But look, I think that the point of all of this is that, we shouldn't trust people blindly.
We shouldn't even, what's so interesting is that, the Princeton professors were talking about, even some experts, these health policy experts, they have such a narrow lens. I think even one of them, whose name escapes me right now, even said this publicly, and there's an amazing recording of him talking about it, is that they get tunnel vision. And so what they think above all is saving lives. But the question there is whose lives get saved and at what cost? right?
Yeah.
And that they never even thought of the cost because their vision is simply too narrow to see beyond it, because that's not their expertise.
Yeah.
And that's why the Democratic Party beating you over the head saying, listen to the experts, like, that's why they're losing fucking elections. Because you can't only just listen to the experts, and you can't beat people over the head and tell them that the sky is yellow when they see it's fucking blue.
But I don't even think it's about just listening to the experts, because I think there were experts who were promoting different ideas. I think it's about, and I think this is a issue on both sides, about creating a narrative that supports your agenda and then following that to the very end and being unwilling to bend. And I think that the entire country has a problem of, like, Democrats feel very comfortable when Democratic politicians tell them something, you know, and Republicans feel the same way. And it's like, we should not be trusting anyone. Like, everybody's out here with an agenda. You know what I mean? Everybody's profiting off of this somehow. Mm-hmm. And I think that you're right. I think that the Democrats are very hostile to critique in the same way that Republicans are too. Like, they're not even holding town halls right now because they don't
totally.
But they don't want to hear it.
I do think there's a number of years. I guess I couldn't really say when it started. At least the last 7 to 9 years in the Democratic Party, where there's, like, you just have to adhere to this orthodoxy of thought. And I do think that now with the Republican Party that's true, but I think that's a little bit more recent. And I think there used to be more room in the Republican Party for, like, different divergent ways of seeing the world and thoughts, and clearly that's gone now because everybody's afraid of Trump. But I do think historically, like, the Democrats have a problem with, like, beating over the head, like, the populace with messaging of, like, you're a fucking idiot if you don't listen to us. And, like, that doesn't work.
No, I agree. It's annoying.
It's annoying. And, like, that's, for instance, that's not how you get people to give their kids vaccines. You don't say, like, you're fucking stupid, of course, give your kid a vaccine. You explain to them that although there are very limited risks, but real, limited risks with giving your child a vaccine, the benefits far outweigh it. You just treat people with respect and dignity and don't act like they're fucking stupid.
Yeah. And I was going to say, some people are fucking stupid. I think I said on the Trad Wife episode that 1 out of every 5 Americans is functionally illiterate. No, wait. I said 1 out of every 5 Americans reads below a 6th grade level. 50% of Americans read below a 6th grade level. 1 out of 5 is functionally illiterate.
Yeah, and I would wonder, have those numbers gone up since the lockdowns with COVID, where learning loss was profound, especially among students who were already having a hard time? I would say that they have probably skyrocketed since then. So you could say the Democratic Party is responsible for that illiteracy.
Yeah, my understanding is there's a very limited window for children to, like, learn how to read. And it gets increasingly harder as they get older to catch up on that gap.
But how can we be the wealthiest nation in the world where their children can't read, right? There's no health insurance.
But you can go to outer space for $150,000 to your mixed-use business park and go sit in your office and look at the earth as it burns to the ground. Yeah, totally. I think that I just remember in school we would, like, write papers, and, you know, you had to, like, find sources for everything, and you had to find multiple sources. And now I feel like people just, like, ask their little questions on TikTok or ChatGPT and then believe whatever's pumped out of that at them.
Anything I read on the internet, I don't believe it. I don't believe anything on the internet. But if it's printed in a book, I mean, that's maybe where I'm kind of, like, cooked. But if it's printed in a book, I'm like, maybe that's real.
Yeah. And I think people are, especially, like, if there's, like, a graph involved, people are like, that's real, you know?
Totally, graphs.
Like, RFK, he's always like, look at the study, you know? Like, he's always, look at the study. You know, like, he's always citing studies.
But also, even the New York Times just came out with an article in the last couple months about how there are benefits to raw milk. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, The problem is I haven't been saying this word because I'm afraid I'm going to mess up. It's the heterodoxy. No, it's the heterodoxy of thought. Fuck it, man. I don't know. It's the doxy of thought, right?
Let me look it up.
Where, like, yes, there are benefits to drinking raw milk. If you just constantly say to people, like, don't drink raw milk. Don't drink raw milk. It's going to fuck you up. But then the New York Times come out with, like, there actually are benefits and there's risks. But I will maintain personally, you can come for me, I don't think my older kid has eczema because that drank fucking raw milk every day.
Yeah, I think we need to pick our battles better, you know? Because, yeah. Like, but you were getting your raw milk from, like, a local family farm, you know?
But I don't think there's any other way to get it. I mean, it's the bureaucratic licensing stuff is, like, it's involved.
Yeah. But I guess I just don't really understand, like, why we are crucifying Fauci, but then we're so willing to accept whatever, like, RFK Jr. tells us, you know? Like, we don't have...
I guess because, to my mind, like, RFK Jr. has just never had credibility, whereas, like, Fauci was supposed to be...
He was more establishment.
Yeah, I guess that's why.
Whereas RFK is, like...
Been fringe. I mean, he has the name. And I guess he was a lawyer, so he passed the bar at some
He
point.
didn't pass the bar.
Oh, he didn't pass it.
He literally was hired as a assistant attorney general in New York, and then he had to resign because he didn't pass the bar.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's dark.
So what are your feelings about vaccines? You want to go into that a little bit more?
Oh my God, today? That is such a big conversation. My feelings about vaccines, I guess it's just more in line with what I've been saying, is like, I think that the way that the medical establishment talks to Americans is completely backwards and wrong-headed.
Yeah.
I spent years in the medical world as a teenager, and I have seen firsthand that they often don't know what they're doing. And that's okay if they were honest about it. But in my experience, they're not honest about it. Mm-hmm. And clearly, you know, what Bernie always talks about, like, what do we pay 3 times more than most nations for our healthcare? But yes.
Sounds about right.
But yet we have, like, our life expectancies going down and we have worse outcomes and more disease. Like, clearly something's not working. It's not working. So why don't we talk about how it's not working? Just telling someone that they're, like, a stupid bitch for not getting vaccines that's not gonna change hearts and minds.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
Touché.
You know?
Yeah, I think it's important to have critical distance from whatever someone is telling you and to do your own investigation. Like, for example, when RFK says that, you know, when he's talking about how dangerous vaccines are because there's mercury in them, which there isn't anymore as of, like, I think 2001.
But you know who also is releasing tons of mercury all the time? Like, mining. Do you know what I mean? Like,
well, so that's what I was going to get into, is that first of all, RFK Jr. gave himself mercury poisoning by eating so many tuna fish sandwiches. Okay. He literally said that in a deposition.
Yeah.
Second of all, Trump just, rolled back like 50 years of EPA regulations, okay, including exempting all of these coal plants from rules about mercury and toxic air pollution. So, like, we are just pumping mercury into the environment.
And mercury, guaranteed for sure, is really bad for you.
Yeah. So, like, while RFK is going on this little tour, you know, telling people that they can't use their SNAP benefits to, you know, buy chocolate bars. Meanwhile, we're just, like, unleashing a huge amount of pollution into the air. You know what I mean? So,
I mean, I don't want to go back to, like, the 1970s level of air pollution, personally. You know what I mean? That doesn't sound fun to me.
So my point is, like, while we're all arguing online about raw milk, you know, or, like...
But that's where I think that, like, I think it would be easier for these arguments to go away if the Democratic establishment didn't fixate on them so much and make them so divisive. If it was just kind of like, yeah, raw milk, you know, I mean, maybe it's good, maybe it's not. You should probably be careful, but okay. Like, but that's not the messaging. It's like, if you drink, like, I've had people literally be to me, they've been like, yo, I drink raw milk. You know what I mean? It's like subversive. It's milk. Who fucking cares? You know, like, and I think that that's the problem, that people would see that as like a flag. It's like, oh, well, if they drink raw milk, they must really not believe in science. But the New York Times just came out with an article about how raw milk has been proven to have health benefits. So don't tell me I don't believe in the science.
Yeah, we're all taking risks on our health with everything we do.
There is risk constantly. You will die. I will die. There is no universe in which we can avoid all risk. It does not exist.
But there are some risks, I argue, that we should be focusing on more.
Like mercury poisoning.
Or like measles, you know, or like tuberculosis.
Measles, you know what I read about measles? Wow, I was like, damn. They were like, just imagine AIDS, but it's airborne. Because the problem with measles is that even though it doesn't necessarily kill you with the first flush of like when you have the infection, especially children, what it does do is it devastates people's immune systems for the rest of their life. And they think that pre the measles vaccine, 50% of all childhood deaths, which in the childhood death rates were higher than, 50% of all childhood deaths were caused by measles, not necessarily from the first infection, but because the children's immune systems were so repressed. So it's like, yeah, measles, it's airborne AIDS.
Yeah, and someone like RFK who like spent decades railing against vaccines now is going around being like, yeah, I guess you should get your measles vaccine. You know what I mean? So it's like,
and in my
everyone
opinion,
has an agenda.
Everyone has an agenda. And my agenda is like, I think there needs to be room for risk assessment where like some vaccines are completely essential and some vaccines get to be more optional. Because I think as a parent who had to have my kids vaccinated in order for them to go to school, do anything, they give a lot of vaccines to kids these days. I don't know what the schedule is, but I think it's something like 45 shots. You know, it's a lot of vaccines. And so I get why people are like, that seems a little excessive, you know? And so I guess what I would say about the medical establishment is like, pick and choose. Instead of asking everybody to take, instead of trying to give my baby a Hep C vaccine when they're 1 day old, maybe just focus on like measles, polio. What else is really bad? Do you know what I mean? Like narrow the window. You know, because you know what people don't love to do? They don't love to pump their babies full of needles. I'll just tell you that much.
Yeah. How do you contract Hep C?
Intravenous drug use or straw drug use, which is why people think it's crazy. Now, if you had or blood. Now, if you had a caregiver the reason they introduced the vaccine is because if you have a caregiver who has Hep C and maybe bleeds and it intermingles with the baby, then the baby could get it, yes. But a lot of people feel like, why do I need to give this to my baby? And they do give it immediately at birth.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, do I understand? It's sort of like the risk analysis is like, okay, well, if we do this, we could save maybe what? I'm just making up a number. 1 life out of 1,000, 1 life out of 10,000. But what you're forgetting is that there's that other group of people who by implementing that is going to make them more skeptical and more resistant to doing this thing that actually you have bigger fish to fry, you know?
Yeah.
And to me, I turned down the Hep C vaccine. My first child, I was attempting a home birth, but had to go to the hospital because of complications. And I turned down the Hep C vaccine. And they flagged me, and I believe there was some follow-up from Health and Human Services with me. Yeah. As like being non-compliant. That's not a great way to foster trust, you know?
Yeah.
And there you have it, folks.
Like my husband's going to listen to this podcast and be like...
I know, but that's the thing is like, but that's what I'm saying. That's the problem with the Democratic Party, that I could be written off solely for having some thoughts about vaccines. And that's not a party that can have a healthy dialogue and will not be able to hold a constituency because people do not have the same thoughts about everything. It will never happen.
Yeah.
Unless you're in fucking China. You know what I mean? Where the surveillance state and the Communist Party tells you how to think. But I don't live in China. I live in America. And I want to be able to have my own ways of thinking. I want to be able to do the research, listen to the experts, look at my intuition, and most of all, not be penalized socially and politically for having independent thoughts.
Yeah. And I guess my final thought is that like all of this discourse, right, puts so much on the individual, you know, like so much responsibility on the individual to like own these decisions, but like there's very little burden for the government to be like looking out for our collective health, which like would require like providing health care, not dumping mercury into the air, you know, like keeping our water clean, keeping our air clean, like having a society where people are like not running around, you know, without childcare, working multiple jobs to make ends meet. Like all of these things are bad for our health, you know? And like meanwhile, we're all attacking each other online.
About what kind of milk you're drinking.
So that would be my thought.
Totally.
Anything else?
No, I wish I had a frothy cold cup right now. But alas, it's hard to get here in New York City.
Yeah. You have to go without.
I'm also going without because of bird flu, but that's a whole other conversation.
Francesca's out here endorsing raw milk and then reveals at the very end that you could get bird flu from drinking it.
It is possible, yeah.
Okay.
So it's wild out there. There are no guarantees. As I said before, it's a psychic jungle.
It's a psychic jungle. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like just because you heard it on a podcast, don't trust a word we say.
Don't trust us. Not for one fucking second.
It's crazy how much research it takes to be this uninformed. It's my experience. Cool.
Totally.
Well, stay safe out there.
Yeah.
See you next time.
Watch your back. Bye.
Bye.